What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Blazers Uprise Postgame Show. The Blazers pulled out another win against a bad team, winning this game 118 to 103 over the Detroit Pistons. Enes Kanter sets a franchise record in both offensive rebounds and total rebounds. He ends up with 30 rebounds for this game. This was an Enes Kanter game to the fullest, with Nurkic being out in this one. Enes Kanter steps up and has a huge performance for the Blazers. Now, on this post-game stream, it's going to be one of those games where, yes, we blew out a bad team. This was a bad team without their best player in Jeremy Grant. Not really anything you can read into since, as we've said in previous streams, we're going to base our feelings on this team based off what they're going to do against good teams. So, we'll enjoy the win. Not too much to criticize or anything like that in this one. But as far as the positivity goes, this is what the Blazers should have done. They had a far more talented lineup out there on the floor today, and they took care of business, thank goodness. So, hope everybody's days are going well. Now, I did not upload the last post-game stream audio to Spotify. The post-game streams are extremely long, and sorting that out is weird, but I will sort that out tonight and get this audio out there on Spotify. We are now publishing our stream audio to Spotify and Google Podcasts. So if you want to listen to us on the go, it's now easier for you to do so. Just go to Spotify, search Blazers Uprise, or go to Google Podcasts, search Blazers Uprise. You should be able to find us. So anyway, let's jump into things. Eric, how are you feeling about this game?
Well, I'm happy we took care of business. It was cool to see Kanter get the franchise record for rebounds with 30 of them. I don't know if it was the best idea to leave him out there to get those rebounds along with the rest of the starters late into this game, which we'll get into. So I don't like that. I don't like that Dame had to play, 34 minutes tonight. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. We started off the game okay. We built like a 6-point lead or so, and then the bench started coming in, and Detroit played us kind of close the rest of the half until a few minutes left in the half. We actually got some stops and put a few points on the board and got, I think it was like a 9-point lead at halftime or so, and then it didn't feel really close in the second half. But yeah, overall, just happy we got the win, but there's not a lot to take away from this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Blazers ended up pulling away there in the third quarter. They outscored the Pistons during that third quarter by a score 36-26 and kind of put this game to bed. The Blazers were up, 14, 15 points at one point during the first half. Maybe it was a little bit less, but the Pistons were able to go on a run and cut that lead to 4 near the end of the second quarter. The Blazers did end that quarter strong, kind of stretching it back out to 9 at halftime, and then came out in the third and outscored them by 10. So it was a 19-point game going into the fourth, but Dame gets subbed in. We're up, 19 with 6 minutes left?
Yeah.
You got Norman Powell and CJ on the floor already. With 6 minutes left, 19-point game, you're probably fine if you play the bench lineup because that Pistons lineup is so bad. But, we've come back from a similar deficit this season. It's rare, but with Dame out of the game, you got enough talent on the floor where you shouldn't have to sub back in when you already got CJ and Powell out there. Let's just be honest and kind of get this topic out of the way first because it was discussed pretty widely on Twitter. You got enough talent out there on the floor. You got CJ and Norman Powell out there. You don't need to sub Dame in. That Pistons roster is not coming back from 19 points with 6 minutes left. So I would have loved to have gotten, not have had to sub Dame back in at all. I would have loved for the first half to give him a little bit more rest. I just feel like we could have won this game by a similar margin and with resting Dame a few more minutes. And if we didn't play tomorrow, it wouldn't be as big of a deal, but we play against the Miami Heat tomorrow, which is probably a good team. The teams we've been struggling against, they're healthy. They didn't have Jimmy Butler the first time, so we got to gear up and get ready to go tomorrow. So therefore, it would have been nice to have Dame play less than 30 minutes, but as you said, he plays 34 minutes tonight.
Well, the other thing, too, is I mean, we're up 19. He doesn't have to necessarily come in. He can still come in later if they cut it to 12 or 13 or something. So you could go to your bench and then you could bring the starters back in and oh, forbid it works. It looks bad on like having to put the starters back in or something. Like who cares? But like there's a good chance you don't have to do that. And I'd rather have that happen and Dame only play like 28 minutes. And especially considering we're hearing all this stuff about how beat up he is, how tired he is, and all that kind of stuff. It's just in a game like this, I just wish we could find a way to limit his minutes somehow.
Yeah, that would have been nice. I mean, it's nice that he had a good game. He had 27 points, 10 assists, hit 4 for 8 from 3-point line. So he kind of needed a game to get him back on track, I felt like. But he was back on track, by the end of the third. He didn't need to play there in the fourth quarter to get back on track. He had he was having a good game. I do like that CJ only played 31 minutes. Would have liked to have seen that be a little bit lower as well. But that's just, you look at this Pistons team. I mean, who was their best player tonight? Saddiq Bey, maybe, a rookie that wasn't even taken in the lottery. Maybe Frank Jackson. Frank Jackson led them in scoring with 17 points. Or no, he was second. Josh Jackson led them in scoring with 21. I mean, they don't have I wouldn't say they have an above average starter that played tonight. Their best player might have been Mason Plumlee. I guess he's not an above average starter. Josh Jackson, no way. Saddiq Bey, not yet. This was a very, very, very bad lineup that Detroit put out there on the floor. So the Blazers did what they did. I just would have liked to have seen them do that while getting these guys more rest. Just headed into tomorrow, first night of a back-to-back tonight. Tomorrow we play a good Heat team. Would have been nice to get a little bit more rest.
And for those of you who have watched this channel for a while, know that I am fully against playing Dame the entire first quarter. And the reason for that is if he comes back in the second quarter around 6 minutes left, like he normally does, that's 18 minutes guaranteed he has to play in the first half. So that means if he plays the whole third quarter, he's already at 30 minutes, right? And to me, in a game like this, where you shouldn't have any problem putting him away, even if you limit Dame's minutes, you should sub him out earlier so there's a chance maybe he doesn't even have to play the whole third quarter, and then he's down around 20 minutes instead of 34. I would just like to see... Like I said, you can play the bench, and if they suck it up and blow the lead, we end up doing that anyway. So what did it matter if we played him 18 minutes in the first half or not? I just like to see them try out some different things in these situations so that it's not like we have to play Dame that many minutes. And if we would have limited his minutes in the first half and it got close in the second half, then he can play a little more in the second half. And it doesn't look quite as bad either. I just don't like the set rotation of always having him play the whole first quarter, because I feel like it sets up the whole rest of the game for him to have to play major minutes no matter what, unless we just completely, like the OKC game was obviously out of hand and he didn't have to come back in. But in most cases with this team, they don't hold on to those leads, so he ends up having to play in the fourth quarter. And if you play 18 minutes in the first half, then you're setting yourself up to play heavy minutes no matter what happens in the second half.
Yeah. I mean, it's a win. It's a 15-point win, but the season is a marathon, and we got to build some momentum, and we got to keep guys rested enough come playoff time that they're able to perform. So that's a lot of the contending teams do that. They manage minutes in games like this where they should win anyway. And this type of game, it's like once the Blazers get up 15-20, I feel like they relax a little bit. You know what I mean? I feel like if Dame was out, they still would have been able to win by a similar margin. They still would have been able to play hard, get up 15, and then relax a little bit. You know what I mean? It might have been, or it definitely would have been harder to get up 15, but they still would have been able to do it just because of how much more talent they had on the floor. So, like, either way, this team should be able to put away the Pistons as long as they have, some combination of CJ, Dame, Norman Powell, Rocco. Like, all those guys I listed, Canner, all those guys I listed are better than anybody Detroit had on the floor today. So I almost wish they tried to manage their minutes because I still feel like they would have been able to, play hard enough and win out on talent and get up 15 or 20, and then maybe they relax, but at least you're doing it with guys having their minutes a bit lower. We'll see how they look at the end of tomorrow's game. But yeah, I feel like we could be a little bit smarter with how we handle the minutes in blowout wins and blowout losses.
And I hear some people saying like, "Oh, every NBA team has to worry about teams coming back," which, yeah, to some extent that's true, especially like I just mentioned, outside of the Thunder and maybe a couple games earlier in the year, there hasn't been a lot of games where we have held on to leads against even bad teams. So like I get that line of thinking. And I also get that no one got hurt, so what did it matter? But you're talking about wear and tear, and now having a game tomorrow night, which is going to be a lot tougher, and then Dame probably going to have to play 35, 36, maybe even more minutes later. It's just a case where doing this in a season where the games are so compact too, there's not a lot of there's not even many days where we have 2 games off in between games, or 2 days off in between games coming up the rest of the season. So I just wish we kind of had a little bit more of an outlook as like for long-term approach to Dame's health and the rest of the team versus just we got to beat the Pistons and we got to keep this lead, that's all. That's how I feel. And I guess we did kind of do that with Nurk. He's not playing in back-to-backs right now, it looks like. So he sat out.
Absolutely no issue with that.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that either. And this was the game to obviously hold him out in. But on a side tangent, I still don't understand why Giles isn't getting a chance to at least prove himself in a game like this, where, obviously we have a talent advantage. Like, why not throw Giles out there and give him a legit chance at the backup minutes to see if he can do something and maybe unlock some of his potential or whatever. But
at this point with Giles, I just feel like the team is just like, yeah, he's not going to play any meaningful minutes for us no matter what at this point, and that's how they view it.
Yeah, I think they pretty much know that. He's on a minimum contract. The chances he's back next season with how little he's played is probably pretty slim. Maybe they're just moving on from him and seeing if other things can work. But I don't know. I feel like he still had the ability to help us this year if we would have developed him during this period where we had all these injuries and stuff and missed a lot of games. So I feel like we kind of missed out on that opportunity. But yeah. Like Blockboy mentions, if Stotts isn't going to play him, why not? You had a chance at some point in the season to bring up another backup big or sign someone else that you could have maybe given those minutes to and could have maybe helped the team when we didn't have anyone above 6'8" or whatever for a couple weeks. So it's kind of weird, that whole situation. I don't really know what to make of it. It's possible he's just horrible in practice or whatever, but they're not practicing that much. So how much could you really get from practicing, since we see that excuse all the time that they don't have time to practice? I don't know.
Yeah.
Now Zach's being really weird in chat too, so it's driving me it's being a little weird.
Yeah. As far as just the whole conversation that we've had about minutes and rest and whatnot, that might seem a little bit nitpicky, but that's the biggest takeaway from this game. There's really not much to take away from this game. And that's what I said before this game. That's what I said on last stream. It's like, okay, we got the Pistons next. It's a terrible team. If we blow them out and beat them by 15, there won't be much to say. Good job, guys. You did what you were supposed to do. But we've seen this lately, where the Blazers will beat a bad team by 15 or 48, which they did against OKC, but the 3 good teams they play around that OKC game, they lose by 17 points or more. So this team has drastic swings in performances depending on if they're playing bad teams or good teams. So if we're holding this team to can it do damage in the playoff standard, we got to base what this team does off of games against good teams. This Detroit Pistons team is far from that. So yeah, there's not really much to take away from this game. Good or bad, the rest thing I felt like was the most important. Other than just getting the win, I felt like the rest thing was the most substantial aspect of this game so far. But Zach donated $2. Zach is our mod, for those of you who don't know. He's donated a couple times before, but he said, Anthony Davis is back. I'm taking my talents to LA Uprise with a purple and gold heart emoji. And then he timed out Blue Rice. Why? I don't know. So I don't know what's going on with Zach. Somebody says Zach's hacked. I mean, yeah, I don't know what's going on right now with Zach. But he's I don't know. It's a Saturday night, man. It's a Saturday night. Maybe Zach's
all over the Lakers.
Been kicking back some beers or something. Very confused.
Zach's like turning into that NBA discussion dude on Twitter. I guess he just flip-flops teams all around and is going to be a front runner and be a Laker fan now.
Yeah, I don't know. That's disappointing, man. Reese says no Zach slander. Zach donated, so I won't slander him. He can be a Laker fan for $2 for tonight. Zach said he had a random message, so he gave him a 5-minute ban. Okay, well, I didn't see it. I forgot what I was going to say. That's tragic. I hate when that happens. That's been happening a lot lately. What else do you want to touch on from this game? We'll get into individual players in a second. If you're new to our post-game streams, we like to touch off with team-based topics to start, and then we dive into individual players. As long as it's a win, sometimes we kind of stray away from that, especially in losses. But tonight, I got the graphics. I actually got to put them into the stream. And yeah, we'll go from there. But anything else like stand out from this game that means anything, Eric?
Well, my whole thing is I like to look at how we play defense and how we guard, particularly the pick and roll. But it's really tough against a team as bad as the Pistons, especially without Jeremy Grant, because they don't have any dynamic ball handlers out of the pick and roll. So, you see a guy like Frank Jackson, like you mentioned at the top of the show, have some success against our weak defense. But, I don't feel like we did anything really special to defend that. But at the same time, the Pistons don't have anyone that can really challenge our defense and go crazy when they sit out Grant. So that's why you say, and I agree with you, that there's not much to take from these games because the Pistons don't have any way of like hurting us, our weaknesses and stuff like that. So of course we're going to look good both offensively and defensively against a team like this, and it should be no way we should even come close to losing against a team like this. So we just did what we had to do, and there wasn't a lot of schematic or game plan stuff that we did, or I didn't feel like we did anything special other than what we do, so yeah, it's kind of hard to like break it down because there was nothing really different that we saw from this lineup other than we're able to score points and stop them because they don't really have anyone that can score that well.
Yep. Shout out Max Gaines, $5 dono. He doesn't have a message with that one.
What's up, Max Gaines?
But
maybe it was
the dono from Max.
One of those held ones, maybe.
Yeah, it didn't say that it was held though, so I don't know what's up with it. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you've pretty much hit everything on the nail, man. I'm kind of just at the point where I'm searching for things I want to say about this game, but everything else is kind of has to do with individual players, maybe. Let's talk about Rondell Jefferson. So he makes his Blazers debut. I don't have a graphic for him. He didn't really record enough statistical production for me to give him the graphic. Also, I gotta, put that graphic together. But 7 minutes, he's 1 for 2 from the free throw line. He misses a 3. His first shot is a spot up corner 3-point shot attempt, even though he's a career 19% 3-point shooter. Surprise, surprise. But I don't know. I don't expect him to stay in the lineup with Nurkic back. I don't know. I assume he's on a 10-day contract right now. I assume he's going to be signed to a normal NBA contract, since we do have to sign somebody to a normal NBA contract, since we only have 13 players on normal NBA contracts, and you have to have a minimum of 14 right now. The deadline for us to do so, I believe, has been pushed off, right, Eric? Since we have Rondell Jefferson as kind of our 14th guy right now, but at some point we will have to probably just convert him to a normal contract.
Well, since there's not much time left in the season, technically we could just sign him to another 10-day after we wait a few days after his 10 days are up, and then sign someone else to a 10-day contract towards the end of the season. And I think that would be enough time with the breaks in between the 10 days to cover the rest of the season. I feel like that's a really cheap way of doing it. I don't understand that. But I don't know. I hope you're right in that when we have our full complement of players, that's not someone got your PlayStation going off or something.
Yeah, I muted my mic, but my PlayStation's just randomly turning off and on in the background. That hasn't happened on stream before, but yeah, that was random. I'm not sure if you guys saw it light up on the camera feed, but yeah, my PS4 wanted a moment of shine, I guess. Hopefully it doesn't do that. I'll have to unplug it if it does that again. But occasionally it does that. It's annoying.
For those that missed it, Stotts, I guess earlier today, said that he was going to play, and that not just in this game, that he was going to be used as a power forward and small ball center, and he would get minutes. So
I don't like that answer.
I don't like that answer at all either. Yeah.
I mean,
I hope that was just misunderstood and he just meant for tonight. But yeah, I don't understand.
Well, here's what I'm confused about. With a healthy lineup, I mean, he said this. He said Derrick Jones Jr. was getting his minutes cut. Or Derrick Jones Jr. was getting his minutes cut, and Jason Quick kind of asked him about, the Melo and Cantor combination, and Derrick Jones Jr. can play some at the 4. But Stotts' whole thing was, Melo and Cantor are going to play. They're the backup 4 and the backup 5. But then we go out and sign a guy to a 10-day in Rondell Jefferson, and then Stotts basically says, yeah, he's going to get minutes at the backup 4 or backup 5. Huh? We're already cutting Derrick Jones Jr.'s minutes too much, and Derrick Jones Jr. is a better player than Rondell Jefferson in a very similar mold. Nassir Little is better than Rondell Jefferson at this point, and Nassir Little is also in a similar mold where he can be, a bit of a small ball 4. He has a very similar body to a Rondell Jefferson, but the thing is, Nassir Little can knock down threes, and that's huge for our offense, which loves to shoot threes. So the whole that whole quote was just very confusing to me. I did not understand that. I'm fine with having him as an insurance policy, but he shouldn't be in the regular rotation if we're healthy.
Yeah, I agree. And what did we complain about what would happen if we traded for an Aaron Gordon or whatever? That he would just be a spot-up corner three-point shooter. And so I was very discouraged to see Rondell Jefferson's first shot as a sub 20% three-point shooter being him just camping in the corner waiting for a kick-out pass and then shooting that awkward-looking three. If we use him like that, I don't know what to say other than it's not a personnel thing. It's not.
Yep, that was a play where I wish he just cut baseline.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably a layup if he just cuts baseline. That's a problem I've had with this team for a long time. But that's also why I didn't want Aaron Gordon, because Aaron Gordon isn't a good three-point shooter. Under Stotts, I didn't want Aaron Gordon. Here's the thing. If Stotts ends up being let go, Eric, I'll have to recalibrate my feelings on a lot of different trade targets if we change the coach this offseason, because that's why I didn't want Aaron Gordon, because it's mostly... Well, I think he's overrated, but also because I felt like Stotts is just going to park him in the corner and he's going to be primarily a spot-up three-point shooter. I mean, just look at how many threes Derrick Jones Jr. has shot this year. Almost half of his shots have been three-point shots, so now he's shooting a career-high 33%, but obviously that's not his strength offensively. He's a lob target, cutter, and a finisher. So Rondell Jefferson is that, but to the extreme, because he's an even worse 3-point shooter. And yeah, his first shot, corner three.
And actually, his playmaking skills, especially in the if we used him as a playmaker out of that short roll, if you look at the analytics on in his year with Toronto, they're actually, you could argue they're better than Aaron Gordon's this year as a playmaker, which we're not going to use him that way, so it's the point doesn't matter. But I just feel like if we're going to play him, we might as well play him to his strengths. And if we play him over the guys you mentioned, and with that a healthy team and how the rotation should be minutes wise, and we play him heavy minutes over any of those guys, especially which we'll get to in a little bit, I just don't understand why we would do that unless we're trying to use his set of skills to better something that's going wrong, instead of just, oh, we have a new guy, let's throw him in and see what he does in this exact same position that other people that play like him don't succeed in. Let's see if it works this time.
Yep.
That makes no sense to try and force him into that role if we're not going to use him in a unique way.
Yep. So Max Gaines, like right under his donation, did leave a question. Since he said, don't know, we'll read it. I kind of wanted to avoid this conversation, to be honest, but we'll answer it because he donated. He says, who do you think is the best replacement for Stotts, and what would he/she do differently? Because she would probably apply to Becky Hammond, who's a name that's been thrown out there. But I mean, coach better. I don't know. I mean, I have a couple of targets. Like, I like the idea of Ime Udoka, at least on the defensive end. But for me, it's like not even necessarily a specific name. It's just I want a coach that does specific things, and those things is versatile defensively. Will run multiple schemes and teach multiple schemes to get his players executing multiple schemes. Will get his players to buy in, and offensively features ball movement, features sets that play to players' strengths, features more productive off-ball movement, not a lot of running around the three-point arc, more like back screens for guys like a Nas or even an Anthony or even a Derek, or especially a Derek Jones Jr. There's a lot of different offensive actions I'd like to see that I'm not really going to get into specifically. I just feel like our offense is way too ISO and pick and roll based, and we would be much harder to guard if we didn't rely so heavily on isolation, pick and roll, and ran more of an offense. I mean, just the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Harrison Barnes Warriors, so before they got KD, I feel like we could emulate a lot of what they did offensively, and what they did offensively was impossible to guard. It was impossible to slow down Steph Curry. Now, Dame isn't Steph Curry in terms of off-ball movement, but I feel like we could incorporate a lot of what they did, and it would help us be successful. So that's what I'd be looking for.
And you don't have to move Dame off the ball like a ton. I think Curry, I don't think Gordon's in here right now, but I think it was something like he was used off ball 8% prior to Kerr, and then it was like 17 to 20% once Kerr got there. So it wasn't like a significant change, but it's enough to make the offense just a lot more free-flowing and more people involved, plus get him more open shots off ball. But we've answered this question a bunch, but for me, I would have a specific set of questions designed to get a coach to answer in a way that he doesn't have a system that he thinks will work against every team or whatever. So like if you ask a coach, like, so what's your defensive philosophy? I don't want it to be like, well, I like to run this scheme like most of the time as my base defense. I want to hear what like Powell said about Nick Nurse. Like every game we have some new different thing we try, and we do this, and this, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then we like at halftime we might switch up and do this and whatever. Like I want someone who will just like have some fresh ideas on how to completely be unpredictable instead of this predictable one system will work against every team and in every situation and against every point guard or ball handler. Like you do the same thing, you drop the big or whatever. If it's trapping too, I don't think trapping works 100% of the time either. So I want someone who is like, you know what? I can't answer what my defensive system will be because against this team, I will do this. Against this team, I will do this. Against this team, I will do this. And then you ask him, like, so what would you do? We've obviously had an issue with Dame being trapped or whatever. So how would you combat that? And if he says anything like, oh, just move the pick and rolls higher or just keep doing what we do, I'm telling him to get the frick out or her to get out of my office and in the interview right then. But like if he's like, well, I would try this or like I think this would work. And then I would say, well, what if it doesn't? And then he would have to come up with several other ideas. And what if that doesn't work? And I want to hear someone come up with several ideas and be willing to try all those until they find something that works and make adjustments within a game. And I think that's the way coaching has to be nowadays. You can't just have one scheme and both on offense and defense and have that work and think it's just going to work time and time again, no matter what happens during the game. And I think we're moving to a situation where all these older coaches who are unwilling to change their style, like Coach Stotts, are kind of being phased out of the game at this point. So I want someone who comes in with a fresh set of ideas. And it's kind of hard to come up with a name without being able to ask them those questions, because I could list off 100 names who I think would be worthy of being interviewed for that, but I don't know how they would answer those questions.
Yep. I don't know how you still answer that question so well and enthusiastically, because that's the question we get asked the most. Every stream, it's in chat multiple times. We will answer it if it's a donation question. Obviously people are, some people can only tune in every so often, maybe haven't heard us answer it, or are new to the channel and haven't heard us answer it, so we'll answer it for them if it's a dono. But yeah, I mean, me and Eric on the same page there. It's just always weird in a blowout win to be talking about like, yeah, who would you replace the coach with? And you know what I mean? It's like, yeah. And I feel like we start talking about it, and then somebody that doesn't watch us much might tune in the middle, and it's like, oh, you guys are talking about replacing the coach when we won by 15. You guys are so negative. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how things go for us. But yeah, Belgian, stop. Belgian Blazers, stop.
I was laughing at
that. So you want to just hop into the players at this point?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, we'll hop into the players. First player we need to break down is going to be Enes Kanter, who set a franchise record. Oh, this hasn't been changing at all, has it? Anyway, it was supposed to be a slideshow, but it was just stuck on manual. I forgot to switch it to slideshow. But yeah, Enes Kanter, 24 points, 30 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, 9 for 16 from the field. A phenomenal stat line for him. Sets some records for the Blazers tonight. Set the Blazers record for most offensive rebounds in a game. Let me look that up real quick. Do you know how many he had? Wait, no, I have it right here. He had 12 offensive rebounds for the Blazers, 18 defensive rebounds. That adds up to 30 rebounds, which is a franchise record.
Yeah, just a wonderful game from Kanter. I mean, what can you say? 30 rebounds is incredible. And they weren't, he wasn't necessarily chasing them. I know they left him in to chase rebounds, but anytime you get, what you said, 11 offensive rebounds?
12.
12 offensive rebounds. That's not him, like, doing anything different than normal. It's just,
doing it
he
at
wasn't
an even higher level.
Yeah, he just was scooping up the boards. A few of them towards the end happened to be right to him, and Detroit was not crashing the defensive or their offensive rebounds very well in this game. They didn't have a lot of size other than Plumlee anyway. And so just a great game. It was cool to watch some history, I guess, with the rest of the game being kind of boring.
Yeah. he started off with 3 offensive rebounds in the first couple minutes, so he set the tone from the get-go. He had his way. He had his way with Mason Plumlee. Detroit went out last offseason and signed all these centers, and not one of them could contain Enes Kanter tonight. It's nice for him to have 24 points. He ran a pick and pop with like a minute left with Anthony Simons, and Simons shot that contested mid-range jumper, and I was hoping Simons would just give the ball to Ennis so maybe he could cap off the night with a 3. That would have been the perfect way to cap it off, but overall, very good performance from Enes Kanter. Shout out Max Gaines, another $5 donation. He says, would you rather re-sign Norman or Gary this offseason salary cap ignored? Why don't we hold off on that question until we get to Norman Powell? We'll get to Norman Powell's player card, and then we can talk about him in comparison with Gary Trent Jr., who set a career high today, and we'll just kind of talk about that situation. That will be a really good conversation topic for when we get to talking about Norman Powell, which will be a little bit later since he didn't really have too big of a game tonight. And we do these players in chronological, or not chronological. We do them in order based on performance. So Enes Kanter had the best game for the Blazers today. The next player we got Dame, who had 27 points, 10 assists, 3 rebounds, 9 for 20 from the field, 4 for 8 from the three-point line. I changed around 3-point and field goals on that graphic. But overall, nice to see him hit some threes again. Nice to see him look more comfortable out there than he has the past few games. Now, I don't think it's any coincidence that comes against a bad team, but it's still nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, Dame was fine. I like to see the 10 assists. I thought he had some real nice passes in this game. Obviously, like you said, watching him see the three-pointer go in can be nothing but good moving forward, hopefully. And, I don't feel like he had to do much, even though he played 34 minutes. I guess that's the one good thing about his 34 minutes is it wasn't like he was having to do crazy things out there or anything, but I think he did well just to play within the flow of the game.
Yep, and there you go. That graphic is now updated. I mean, he took a couple falls that kind of scared me in this game. One where Corey Joseph jumped on his back and then somehow complained about the call when he jumped on Dame's back and hit his arm. I don't like Corey Joseph. I don't know, man. There's something about Corey Joseph I don't like. Him arguing that foul call was just mind-boggling to me. But yeah, it's nice to see him hit. He had a deep 3, 1 or 2 deep 3s in this game. Those have been a bit absent lately, which is to be expected when you're struggling with your shot. You're probably not going to be pulling or hitting from 30 feet plus. So it was nice to see him hit a shot from there.
2 dunks too.
2 dunks? Yeah, 2 dunks. Nice.
I like when he gets mad and just takes it to the rim and is going to either finish or get fouled. I think that's a better approach than to whine about foul calls. But
granted, part of it was Detroit just not rotating over to protect the rim whatsoever. But
that's true.
But still enjoyed it. Still enjoy when Dame throws one down. The next guy we got is CJ McCollum, who had 26 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 11 for 21 from the field, 3 for 8 from the three-point line. He also had a solid game, an efficient night for him. Shoots 38% from 3 for the night. He was 8 for 13 from 2, so he's able to finish inside the arc. He and Dame both had good games in this one. Honestly, this is like kind of an average game for CJ though this year, and Dame's game was scoring wise a little bit below season averages. So for their standards, I'm not even sure both of them had like good games. Both of them had pretty normal games, but it's just nice to see them have efficient nights on the same night.
Yeah, CJ was fine. I still don't like when he is playing with the second unit and he just dribbles and shoots without passing the ball. I know he can make them. The second unit seems to play better when they're running some sort of offense or he's creating for others. So I want to see him once again use his dribbling and his great I don't know how to describe it, shot creation ability to also play make for others. So I'd like to see a little more of that. But overall, there's not much to complain about with Most of the players, CJ included.
Yep. Next guy we got is going to be Nas, who had a perfect night from the field, hit a three, had a nice drive. He's looked very good lately on both sides of the ball. His slashing ability has been noticeably improving. I feel like he's being more decisive on attacking the rim. I mean, there's no way you can bring in Rondell Jefferson and play him over Nas, honestly, and at this point, he's making the case that he should be a part of the regular rotation. He's been playing some two guard. Like starting Norman. It's weird. Starting Norman Powell with the three leaves. CJ's the backup point guard, right? And then Norman Powell starts at the three, but plays like some backup two. But it still leaves some minutes at the two, which was being filled by Anthony. But now the Blazers went out there with a lineup that included Little at the 2, Derrick Jones Jr. at the 3, Melo at the 4, and Canner or Rocco at the 5. I thought those lineups were a bit interesting, but I mean, if you have Nas, Derrick Jones Jr. out there, Rocco, all those guys are switchable 2 through 4. I don't mind it.
Yeah, that was one of the things I liked. I'll say this. I like that Stotts went to that in this game. He played Nas over Simons, and that's the problem with, like you mentioned, starting Powell is Simons can go at the 2 in that situation. It's a little unclear what you do if you don't play Simons, but I like to see him try it tonight. I think this is a good team to try it against. And Nas, man, this guy is good. He needs to be part of the rotation. And I was worried when I saw those comments today that those minutes would come from Nas. So I'm glad to see him actually play in this game. I don't remember how many minutes exactly he had. 23 minutes. So yeah, if he can consistently get 20 minutes, I think we'll be better off for it. And this is one of those guys where we've talked a lot lately about how our ceiling this year is not looking very high with how we do against good teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Nas is one of those guys who, unlike most of the players on this team who you know what you're going to get from, he's one of the few guys who is still a wild card and can possibly blossom or give a lot more than what people expect from him. So, well, I mean, people who know Nas, like us and some of our viewers right now who are very high on Nas, they know what he can do and what he's capable of. But I just feel like he's one of those guys where if we give him minutes and he's playing like this against good teams, I mean, he played this way against the Bucks. He had 30 points against them. It's not like he goes away against bad teams or anything like that. I mean, against good teams. So, I don't know, just give this guy a shot and maybe he can become one of those 3-and-D wings. Plus he's finishing around the rim. He had a couple nice drives where he created shots on his own. I think this guy is ready for those minutes now, and I don't know if he's going to consistently get that opportunity, but I think he has earned it.
Yeah, the only question is just kind of how it shakes out with Nurkic in the lineup, because then you have a situation where your players off the bench are Melo, Cantor, Derrick Jones Jr., and Nassir Little. So it'll be interesting to see what his minutes are going to look like going forward. But he does belong in the top 9 with those other 3, Cantor, Melo, and Jones off the bench. That should be the 4 off the bench. Now, I still kind of feel like Norman Powell should come off the bench. But if that hurts your chances of re-signing him, you almost have to start him and then hope to lock him up long term, and then he becomes your third guard, or maybe Olshey makes a CJ move this offseason. Mm-hmm. Who knows? So yeah, it's because basically at this point you're playing by starting Powell with a 3. You're taking away minutes from Powell at the 2 and giving them to Powell with the 3, and that takes away minutes at the 3 for Nassir Little. And if he's going to play, you gotta give him minutes at the 2, basically. So both guys a little out of position there by starting Powell. We'll talk about Powell in a little bit because that's kind of like the other part of my point.
And the thing about it, though, if you're going to play that lineup, you cannot just run your normal offense. You have to have some sort of movement to the hoop. You have guys like Little, Derek Jones, people who can finish at the rim. So like I don't want to see him just camping out the 3-point line and let CJ drive and kick or post up Melo in those situations. And to Taylor's comment in chat, who says Nas only looks good because Melo looks so bad. This has nothing to do with Melo. Nas is playing well. Whether
I mean,
Melo
he's 5 for 5. What does that have to do with Melo?
Melo is on the team or not, like this guy has been playing good. Other than some random injuries and him missing games, I think he's been fairly consistent most of the year. And when he's given a chance at regular minutes. And yeah, it has nothing to do with Melo. I just really like Nassir's potential, and he's one of the few wild cards that has a higher ceiling than most of the veterans on this team. Not ceiling wise, but like a chance to get better than he's showing right now. Whereas Melo, you know what you're going to get. Dame, you know what you're going to get. CJ, you know what you're going to get. All those guys, Cantor, you know what you're going to get from game to game. But Nas, and maybe I put Nurk in there too, because I mean, if he ever got back to where he was pre-injury or somewhere close to that, especially utilizing his playmaking skills, that opens up another ceiling too for us. But I'd say those two guys are by far the biggest key if we want to raise our ceiling to having something we don't have right now.
Yep. I think Nas is our backup forward next year, by the way. Or him and Derek Jones Jr. are backup forwards next year. I feel like he will definitely have an expanded role next season. I just think he definitely deserves minutes this season as our ninth man at least. Next guy we got is Carmelo. He hit 2 for 3, 2 out of his 3 threes. He was 2 for 5 inside the arc. I mean, he hit some shots, and I don't know. It's just, there isn't really much to take away from him tonight, I feel like. It wasn't, I mean, what can you say about Melo's game tonight, Eric? I'm kind of at a loss for words to say anything good or bad.
I mean, he was fine. He had a couple of nice defensive plays, too, in the first half. I think late in the second quarter, I believe it was. But yeah, it was fine. It was nice to see him hit a few. He'd been struggling the last few games, so I wouldn't say it was like a great game, but it was better than the last few. So hopefully this gets him going in the future. With knowing that our offense isn't going to change much, we are going to need Melo at some point to get hot if we're going to beat some of these good teams. And I wish we had a way to get better shots once again. But overall, I think I didn't have any problems really with Melo tonight.
Yeah, agreed. You pretty much summed it up how I wanted it to. So, next guy we got, I want to get into this discussion. Okay, so Norman Powell tonight, 9 points, 3 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2 for 10 from the field, 1 for 5 from the 3-point line. All right, the guy we traded for him tonight, Eric, had 44 points.
Mm-hmm. 7 rebounds.
7 rebounds.
4 assists.
4 assists. Was that what it was? Was like 17 for 19 from the field. Yeah, so what's funny is I haven't really seen this because I don't follow really any pro stats people for the most part, but I assume the whole conversation went, why in the world do we trade Gary Trent Jr. for Norman Powell? Yet those people that, hate Olshey and like Stotts are probably saying that. But then my whole question is, okay, why was Norman Powell better under Nick Nurse than Gary Trent Jr. was under Terry Stotts? Since one of the big, arguments for Stotts is that he makes players better, and the pro Stotts crowd loves to look at Nick Nurse and that team's record this season and just bash Nick Nurse over that, even though, we were kind of in that boat last year with, they had COVID issues, we had injury issues, but we had a more talented team than they do last year, in my opinion. That's just a whole nother conversation. Basically, my whole point is you compare this game to Gary Trent Jr.'s, and it kind of makes you question that trade on the surface, but I feel like we aren't doing a good job of getting Norman Powell good shots. And this is how I felt with Gary Trent Jr. as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you see Norman Powell's efficiency tonight, 1 for 5 from the three-point line, 2 for 10 from the field. I felt like he had to force almost every shot he got, and it wasn't like he wanted to. It's just like if he's going to get a shot off, he had to force. And other guys got like good catch-and-shoot looks, so I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but I think this is a bigger theme where we don't really run any design sets for him, it seems like. Because we're not used to having a small forward that is able to do the things that he does. And it's not getting him going like it should, because this guy was a guy averaging 19 points per game coming into Portland. 19.6 points per game, actually, and only 30 minutes per game. So it's not even like he's playing, like CJ McCollum, who's playing 36 minutes a game. So,
and it was somewhere between 23 and 25 his last month or so before the trade.
Yeah, so he comes in here, and I feel like starting next to Damon CJ, he's struggling for shots, but then also the system, he's struggling to get clean looks a lot of the times because we don't run plays for our wings other than Damon CJ to really get clean through catch and shoot 3-point looks. It's a lot of our catch and shoot stuff comes off of Dame or CJ breaking down the defense and then kicking out, but guys aren't really leaving a Norman Powell. Now maybe that's helping out Damon CJ, I guess you can maybe make that argument, but regardless, I feel like we need to get him more shots. I feel like he might be a little bit better with the bench unit, where he could be more of a focal point. Now, I don't want him to be the focal point where, okay, well, you're playing with a bench unit. Here, isolate 5 times in a row and go get us buckets, which kind of seems to be our whole team's MO. I would love to bring him off the bench, play him 30 minutes a game, and run some sets that are able to utilize his finishing ability, his cutting ability, his athleticism around the rim, as well as his 3-point shooting ability, because we haven't done a good job of doing that. Now, I think you kind of got to start him because you want to try and keep him. So I understand why. You start him and then you stagger him and try and bring him back in with the bench lineup. I feel like, a game like this, and then you compare it to Gary Trent Jr., who had a great game tonight, I feel like a lot of it is a product of the situation that both those guys are in right now. I still believe Norman Powell's a better player, but like contrasting these two guys' games tonight is a big product of the situation both of them are in.
Well, here's the deal. Lowry hasn't played since the trade, I don't believe. Van Vliet's missed almost every game. Siakam was out tonight. They don't have a lot of players playing right now. Trent started at point guard alongside DeAndre Bembry a few days ago. Part of this is he's just getting free reign to basically shoot the ball, which he's taking advantage of. And obviously he shot the ball great tonight. But a lot of it is just he wouldn't get that opportunity here. And that's why you hear him comment the way he does about how different it feels for Toronto. It's not just the coaching, which has a big part of it, but it's also the fact that like they don't care. They're telling him to shoot whenever the frick he wants to right now, right? So like do whatever you want on the court, basically. I don't even know if they're trying to win right now. It's almost like a low-key tank going on. And so of course he's gonna put up massive numbers, and if he gets hot, we know he can get hot and shoot the lights out. So that's not a big deal either. So I think it's just a matter of, like, if Powell's left on that team, he would be putting up these kind of numbers too. And to your point, I think we do need to do a better job of getting him quality shots in his quality zones, which are the corners, but you don't just have to post him or stand him in the corner, like you said, and kick out to the corner. You could run him off some screens to the corner as a design play to get him a look from that spot. But I feel like we're just kind of giving him the ball randomly and letting him go to work. First play of the game, he did have a really nice drive and a dump-off pass to Cantor for a wide-open lay-in, which was really nice to see. I thought that was maybe going to build towards something else, but then we didn't really exploit that at all the rest of the game.
Yep. So that's how I feel on that situation. Uh, and Max donated and asked, who would we rather, sign if we could sign Gary Trent Jr. to whatever this offseason, or, keep Norman Powell, which we can sign Norman Powell to whatever we can with Gary Trent Jr. But hypothetically, if we could, sign either, who would we rather have? And I mean, long term, like, I'm pretty split, like either or. Gary Trent Jr. is younger. I think right now Norman Powell's better. I have the feeling that Gary Trent Jr. didn't want to be here. Okay? And you don't want a guy who doesn't want to be here, because the dude was giving minimal effort on the defensive end. The dude was giving minimal effort when it came to rebounding. And you compare that to him like last season, and something happened this season. I don't know if it started with the game in which he got 6 minutes or what happened, but effort-wise, it seemed like he was not putting forth effort, and just listening to him, it just didn't seem like he wanted to be here. Then he goes to Toronto and says he feels wanted for the first time in his career, and keeps reiterating how the coaching staff believes in him. And I feel like something went awry between the coaching staff, or Terry Stotts, and Gary Trent Jr. I feel like something went awry there. And when Gary Trent Jr. first talked about his defensive progression last season, then going into the bubble too, he was a much better defender than anybody expected. And when he talked about that, he said basically that it was his own work that he was putting in. It wasn't really due to anything the coaching staff was helping him with. Next time the guy asked about it, he did give the coaching staff some credit, but I feel like behind closed doors, there was something that went awry between Gary Trent Jr. and the coaching staff. And that is part of the reason why Olshey made that trade. And if that's the case, you can blame Stotts and the coaching staff for that, and maybe that forced Olshey's hand, So that's the thing. It's like, if you hate the trade, I feel like maybe you don't even blame Olshey there. You blame the coaching staff, because I think at this point, the way this is all played out, Trent didn't really want to be here, and something went awry in that relationship.
Yeah, I don't know if I go that far. I think it's more he got a taste of starting, and then when CJ comes back, and it's all of a sudden now I'm going back to the bench. And then I don't remember what game it was, but there was a game, either somewhere in the first 3 games CJ came back, where I feel like Trent was visibly upset. Like they did something weird with the rotations, and he didn't play as much as he had been playing or whatever, and he kind of in the second half didn't come in as much. And I felt like from that point forward, maybe it was more just about he realized that if this team is healthy, he's not going to get the role he feels like he agrees or he has earned or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible too. And if he wanted to start, that's hard with CJ being here. It's just like, I feel like there's an attitude difference, and I don't know, the little bit that I've seen of him in Toronto, there's an effort difference. Even when he was starting, even, kind of towards the start of the year, he wasn't giving forth the effort we know he's capable of. And that's part of the reason why I believe the way I do.
It might be... the reason why I can't blame the coaching necessarily, because it could be contract-wise, which would fall on Olshey, because, he was eligible for a contract this entire season, but there was like a max we could give him being a second-round pick. I think it was around $15 million, so we couldn't give him as much as we could give him if we waited till the offseason. But it's possible that Olshey, we could have been negotiating with him all season. We don't know, right? Because second-round picks aren't like first-round picks that have the beginning of the season as that drop-dead date. So it could be a case where we were like, we like you, but we can't go above this number. So this is the max offer we can give you right now. We're probably not going to go higher than that this summer. So if you don't take it, we're probably going to have to move you or whatever. And maybe that's why they ended up moving him.
Maybe that's why he says he feels like he wasn't wanted. Basically,
Right,
feels like he
exactly.
wasn't wanted. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's definitely possible. I mean, there is something that happened there. Whether it's like a contract negotiation that didn't get hammered down or something, I don't know. But there has to be something that happened there with either a contract negotiation
And
or him just not feeling wanted, regardless. For him to just go out and say, "This is the first time I felt wanted."
yeah. Well, on top of that too, I mean, Dame and CJ are both locked up for several more years after this. So even if we did say we're going to re-sign him, he might have felt kind of stuck where that we control his rights, so he doesn't have a say in his free agency, and he has to come back to the situation where he doesn't have a path to starting unless there's an injury. And whereas with Toronto, Lowry is a free agent after this season. By all accounts, it looks like they're going to move on from him when that time comes. So he has a path to being a starter there, and he's on a team where he feels like if they re-sign him, he's the starter moving forward, and they're probably going to invest a lot of money in him to do that. So he doesn't have the same concerns as here if he re-signed, even if it was for the same amount of money. So I think a lot of it's just opportunity for him to be better. Plus, I mean, we both know that in our minds, Nurse is a far superior coach. So it could be something. It could be along the lines of he just is realizing all these things can be different about his game. He can get help from his coaches game plan wise, not just him having to do it on his own, like you said. Like he's finding out that coaches can actually, wow, they can scheme a play to get me an open shot instead of having to shoot a contested 3-pointer and stuff like that. So a little bit might have to do with coaching as well. I just think there's a lot of dynamics at play here.
Yep. Blockboy says last game Trent had 6 points on 2 of 14 shooting. Why didn't we compare him to Powell after that game? Well, wasn't that last night, or was that on a game in which Powell played? I don't know. Trent having 43 points is a lot more notable than him having 6, so that's why we're having this discussion. And I also just want to preface the rest of the season basically with the fact that they're in two different situations, and we don't know what happened behind closed doors with Gary Trent Jr. Therefore, O'Shea shouldn't get any flack for that trade, no matter what Gary Trent Jr. or Norman Powell does for the rest of the season, because Gary Trent Jr. is going to a better situation for him. Norman Powell's probably going to a little bit worse situation for him to put up numbers. So combine that with us not knowing what happened, and that's why O'Shea shouldn't get any flack no matter what happens with these two guys' production for the rest of the year.
And the thing I'm worried about, like several people bring up in chat, is that I'm hoping it's not a case where Norm starts feeling the way Trent felt, if he was feeling that way about the coaching staff in the situation here.
Well,
so I'm hoping by starting him, that's the only way to maybe relieve some of that. But I could definitely see a situation where Powell's like, nah, screw this. I don't want to be a part of this. But if Stotts gets fired, I guess maybe that's
the
way
whole
to
point
ease
I
that.
wanted to make. If he's starting and then Stotts gets fired, I mean, at this point, I feel like Stotts is probably going to get fired. I mean, let's just be honest. I tweeted that out today. I just feel like it's far more likely than not. I mean, all the talk that's been around the team and the way some of the players have sounded, and Nurkic's quotes, and like Gary Trent Jr.'s quotes about the defense in Toronto, and I don't know. It's just like this feels like there's a little bit of a weird energy around the team right now, and I feel like that's because of Stotts. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting the dynamic you brought up last post game, about the like what if certain players start to turn on Stotts, what side would Dame take?
Mm-hmm.
That whole dynamic, and Dame seems fed up with how they perform against good teams. And then, I mean, they came out this game. I still don't feel like they have like any sort of killer instinct, or like seem like super intense or anything, or anything like that. So I don't know. It just something is weird. And see, I have a feeling CJ is going to take the fall for it, because what do we hear all year? Oh, we're injured, right? We don't have CJ. Just wait till CJ Nurt comes back. This is from like the people who, support Stotts or whatever.
Yeah.
And now CJ comes back, and now it's all of a sudden, told you guys we can't win with a small backcourt. CJ and Dame can't work out. That's all I heard today from people telling me that. So I'm hoping that this team sees or tries a new coach before doing something drastic elsewhere. That's my only issue, is that CJ is going to become the focal point of all those people since they refuse to believe it's coaching. So I hope that isn't enough, or the people who are in charge of those decisions don't think that same way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they do. I mean, you heard Olshey going into the season talking about how they needed to do different things schematically, and now look at us. We're right back to how we were defending last year. And the defense hasn't improved, and we've heard reports that, the front office is going to look very hard at Stotts' job here if the defense doesn't improve, and we heard that before the season. Well, our defense is 29th, and some of the things he said are extremely questionable. I think this is building up. You combine it with our bad performances against good teams and how we're so far off from being competitive against a playoff team right now, and just everything that's going around the team, and we only have 20 games left to figure it out. I think everything is just building up for us to lose in the first round, and if that happens, I can all but guarantee Stotts is gone in that situation, given how this season has played out. I think that it's likely he won't be the coach next year. That's just kind of the point we're at. And then we get to see how certain players get unleashed. Hopefully we hire a better coach, the right candidate, and that would make next season the most intriguing season of Blazers basketball I may have ever seen. I'm younger, so I wasn't around for the 90s runs or anything, so might be the most intriguing season for me next year if that happens.
Yeah, and we have a situation where this is a common cliche, is that's the easiest thing to change. So, and it's a saying for a reason, is that you can always change the coach, right? Mm-hmm. It's harder to change the players, and that's absolutely true, especially with CJ's contract and some of the other contracts on this team. It's not as easy as just, oh, we should have traded CJ instead of Gary Trent or stuff like that. It's complicated with the cap and things. So the easiest solution would be to basically have a similar team, or bring most of the guys back next year, and then add a new coach on top of that. And it would be intriguing to see that just basically a similar roster, kind of like the Knicks this year, where you have almost the same roster, but a completely different mindset with the coach, and just see how that translates on the court. It would always be fun, hypothetical, to just redo this season on paper or like in a time machine or whatever, and put a different coach out there and see what happens with this talent. And then you could say for sure, like, oh no, this is that way. So like I want that to happen, in short of them going on a miraculous run or whatever. I think you're right that it is lining up to appear that this is Stotts' last stand.
Yep. I don't even know how we got to that point. I guess it was the Norman Powell, Gary Trent Jr. convo. But
one more thing about that. So the thing about the Derrick Jones comment from last game, mm-hmm. This is exactly why you and I reacted so poorly to that signing, right?
We didn't react poorly. We reacted perfectly.
So, but like everyone, DJ plays well, and everyone's like, admit you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. And we have this guy, Terry Stotts, who our minds changed with the signing once Olshey laid down the gauntlet that schematically it needed to change. And once he said that, we thought of it differently. But now you see, we're not doing a single thing different than last year, other than we have different players, right? Mm-hmm. So, especially defensively. And so what are we doing? We're doing all the things we cautioned about that move under Stotts, this coach, And then Stotts flat out comes out and says, this guy has no impact on my scheme or whatever, because we're 29th without him and 29th with him. So, like, he admits that he's doing nothing differently to utilize. Derrick Jones was one of the top 3-point perimeter defenders in the NBA last season. And you can say that was limited minutes or whatever, but he has a skill on defense, and we are horrible on defense. We are obviously not using these guys correctly. And Stotts basically put that on Derrick Jones, not him. And this is exactly why you threw your hat and I got mad as soon as we signed this guy.
Yeah, because it was like the first thing I said, Derrick Jones Jr., man, he's a terrible fit or whatever, something like that. You know what I mean? It was more about the fit. Now, I didn't think he was as good of a defender as he was, so that's why signing's grown on me. And, you know, I like Derrick Jones Jr. I want to see him, you know, a good coach. Like, I would love to go out and get Steve Kerr with his motion offense and then plug Derrick Jones Jr. into that with Nurkic's playmaking and Dame's playmaking and CJ's playmaking and the, you know, Norman Powell's shooting and Roko's shooting. It's like, you know, it's just some combination of that should, you know, with the way Steve Kerr has run that Golden State offense would be beautiful to watch and very effective and very hard to stop in the postseason. I mean, that's the biggest thing is how does things translate to the postseason. So, but we're on Derrick Jones Jr., by the way. He had 5 points, 4 rebounds, a block, a steal. 2 for 3 from the field, hit his only 3. That block, he just demolished Isaiah Stewart.
Oh, that was awesome, yeah.
Demolished him. Welcome to the league rookie type of moment. He had a good
and how many minutes did he play?
Not much. I don't think. Let me pull up the box score.
17 minutes.
17 minutes.
Better than 11, I guess. But
I mean, Stotts could just say, oh, well, you know, you guys wanted me to rest my starters, and he started a lot, so I'm resting my starter. Or something like that. I don't know, man. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. The rotations are weird. It's going to be interesting to see how they shake out. I mean, there's a couple people that aren't going to like this, but at this point, I think you need to give some of Melo's minutes to him because Melo can provide shot making, but we have a ton of shot making on this team, and with missed shots, we got the best offensive rebounding bench big man in the league in Enes Kanter. So he kind of neutralizes misses a little bit because he's able to get a high percentage of offensive rebounds. So what we need defense. We need defense off the bench. We need defense next to Kanter. That's my opinion at this point. And I know a couple people in here won't like that, but that's what I would do.
Yep.
And I'm not saying cut Melo's minutes altogether. Just stagger Melo and Kanter more, and then give a few of Melo's minutes to Derrick Jones Jr. because I think Derrick Jones Jr. deserves it. Not even necessarily that Derrick Jones Jr. is a better player. I'm not even saying that. We just need more defense on this team, and Derrick Jones Jr. is a better defender. So,
yeah, I would like to see defensively that with Nas and Derrick Jones and Melo and Kanter.
You want to see Melo and Kanter defensively?
No. I'm saying if we're going to play Melo and Kanter defensively, I kind of want to see how it looks with Jones and Little as the other wings there, just to see if they can try to do anything to help those two out. I mean, we heard Stotts say they're going to play together, so like I'm just trying to think of ways where we can maybe help them out. But offensively, Eric, I don't like that.
Eric, what happens when they get hit with a ball screen? Okay. Then they're going to get screened out of the play, and they're going to drive downhill.
We have that problem regardless of who we play.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It wouldn't change. I don't think it would really change anything because teams would still be able to just exploit that in the pick and roll and just screen, set ball screens to take Derrick Jones Jr. and Nassir Little out of the play a little bit, then just go downhill and attack Kanter, and then Melo might be the help side defender in that situation, and he's not the quickest rotator, and teams might be able to pick us apart that way, just like they already do. So, I don't know. I mean, if Derrick Jones Jr. and Nassir Little are the wings, I would just want to see us trap or hedge. I would like that combination with Melo and Kanter. So a lot of it, I feel like, is scheme. Like we play into our weakness a bit because we let teams go downhill at Cantor and at Melo, and like if we just brought those guys up to hedge or trap or even iced pick and rolls better, it wouldn't play to our rim protection weaknesses with that front court pairing as much.
Yep. I mean, I agree with that. I just don't. I mean, we heard straight from Stotts that it's not going to happen. So, and then, I mean, with Rondell Jefferson, if he's going to play some 5, I would love, if we knew we were going to take a timeout, have Powell, Little, Jones, Rocco, and Rondell Jefferson in the lineup. Completely switchable. You could do so many different things there. You could trap. You could switch every pick. You could. There's just so many things you could do with that defensive lineup. We have 5 guys now who are good defenders. I would love to see them, if they need a stop in a late game situation, put out a lineup that is like really good defensively.
Yeah, Block Boy. See, I knew Block Boy would have a major issue with me saying reduce Melo's minutes a little bit. Before Melo got here, I heard it was all about Aminu and Harkless, and that they were the reason you guys lost. This is just a regular thing. I was telling people they blamed Aminu and Harkless too much because those guys can play some defense. Notice how I'm not anywhere near as hard on guys that play good defense, because we need good defense. So the guys that can play good defense, why would I be hard on them? Because they do what we need. But yeah, I'm not even blaming Melo. It's a pairing. Cantor isn't a good fit next to Melo. Melo isn't a good fit next to Cantor, and it's also the scheme. That's literally all it is. So I know you're gonna run with that and freak out, just like every other Melo stan. That's why, I'm cool with Melo leaving this offseason. So due in part to his stands are just ridiculous, and just if you mention Melo in a non-positive light, even if you're not being hard on him whatsoever, they just cannot handle it, Eric. They can't. They hate it, and they run with it. How dare I say take 5 minutes from Melo and give him to Derrick Jones Jr. Oh my goodness, I'm making Melo out to be the fault for everything, apparently. I don't know. Anyway, there's my Melo stand rant. I haven't had one of those in a while. Anything else you want to say on that rant or Derrick Jones Jr.?
Congratulations to Steve Peterson, who just got banned. We don't wish injury on any player. That's disgusting behavior, and we do not allow that at all. So just wanted to point out that anyone doing that will be insta-banned. We do not do that here. I mean, he's trying to make it seem like it was a Blazer thing, but any team Melo is on would have people who think he's washed or can't play anymore and stuff like that. So he would have to deal with that, whether we had whether Melo was a Blazer or whether he's on another team. But I mean, this was a guy who wasn't in the league either for a year plus, and obviously that was unwarranted probably, but it's not like we're saying anything like slighting this guy's legacy or anything like that. It's just, I mean, it is what it is. He's a volume shooter who can still get hot on occasion. He has played okay defensively compared to probably his career. I mean, I don't think he's that much. I don't think he's been like god awful on defense, but.
Well, Block Boy says Blazer fans are different than you, Eric, but he doesn't even know how to spell your name right.
Oh, man.
He's trying to give you some respect, but can't even give you the respect to spelling your name right, man.
Blazer fans are not different, and no matter what team you're on. I mean, if he would have played out with Houston, that would have been way worse for you, Block Boy. You know that too. They totally blame Melo for something that wasn't even his fault. And you say we're the thing that we re-signed him. And, I mean, it's just, I don't know.
No, we are the problem because we don't want him and Cantor paired together.
And I know there's a lot of people that are saying, like, F him and, like, cut him, release him, stuff like that. I mean, that's not... I mean, if you want to like just go by what those people say, yeah, okay, whatever. But like, I mean, if you listen to what, at least myself in particular has been saying all year, is like, I don't think we're doing. I don't think we're trying to. People argue that we have to uphold his legacy, or that's what they're trying to do for some weird reason. But like, I don't feel like we're doing that properly. We're putting him in a horrible position by playing him in the worst possible lineup he could play with. And I think even you would agree that knowing that Block Boy thinks Cantor's the problem, not Melo, that when we say we don't want to see Melo and Cantor together, like you should agree with that, not think that's like a slight on Melo or whatever. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, man.
Mills Woj with the $5 donation. He says, why in the season we went to the Western Conference Finals? We were ranked 16th in defense and now we're 29th. If we did the same things and we have better defenders in Rocco and Derek Jones Jr.
There's a good question. Eric, you want to shoot at that first or you want me to?
Yeah, the problem is the season before that, I believe that's the season we were in the top 10 in defense, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just look this up real quick. To prove my points here. This will be really quick.
Some people are already saying David Vanderpool.
16. Yeah, so the season before that, we were 8th. Okay. We had Nurk that entire season. That was his first full year with us. The next year, we fall to 16th. The next year, obviously, Nurk was hurt, but we fall to 28th. This year, we're 29th. You guys know the story. This is why. We had the same defense. Nurk comes in. It's a whole new look, right? Because Nurk is completely more dynamic defensively than any big we had in that position, even like a Robin Lopez or whatever. Defensively, Nurk was a game changer on that end. And then in the 2017 draft, we also add someone in Zach Collins who we didn't think was going to contribute for a few years. But defensively, he comes in and pretty much from his rookie year in spot minutes was actually a positive defensively for us. So we had those two guys who have been hurt for most of the last 2 years. So you can say a little bit has to do with injuries. But the problem is, so in those seasons, we have a little bit different look because we have upgraded bigs to defend the rim. But 4 years later now, we're running the same schemes. We're doing all the same things defensively. So what it looks like to a team that played us, like Chris Paul has played against us for 4 years. He knows when he plays the Blazers exactly how we're going to defend every single time he comes around a pick. And I mentioned this earlier with a new coach. You have to adjust. If I was a player, I could bring up, I could ask like my video coordinator for every single play Portland ran a pick and roll, defended a pick and roll on defense this year. And I could spend like hours just watching every play before the game and being like, oh, in this situation, they dropped the big like 10 feet, like almost every time or whatever. And with technology this nowadays and with how advanced analytics have become, how you have all these guys who just tirelessly work at this stuff and try to find the best ways to analyze data and to exploit weaknesses of teams and all that stuff. You cannot survive with the same base defense over and over again. You have to have specific game plans. And this is exactly why Norm Powell comes here and is mad because we run the most basic crap and it's soft and it's conservative and we don't do anything to get the offensive teams out of their comfort zone. And you can change the players and that all you want. But if we're dropping Cantor, it doesn't matter if the other 4 players are the best 4 defenders in the league because the defense knows exactly where Cantor's going to be and they're going to exploit that. And until we start being less predictable on that end, it will not matter what our personnel is, other than the fact that maybe against the Lakers, like Derek Jones and Rocco just happened to switch the picks between LeBron and AD because they kept running that thing and we were just switching it and we're fine that game. So like occasionally it can work out against the team maybe, but like other than like randomly like that, you're not going to get You're not going to get a game where we're just lights out defensively, except randomly last year against Houston when we run a diamond and one and shut James Harden down, and that's exactly why it worked that game, because James Harden, if you heard his comments after that game, he's like, I've never seen that before, because the Portland Trailblazers had never like done that to him, and he was like, what the heck, like the Blazers double team me the whole game, they never do that. And this is the kind of stuff that our coaching staff does not do. We have a bunch of yes men, and I'm sorry, like the assistants are all probably really good guys, but they're just allowing this to happen, and someone has got to get in Stott's ear. And we had David Vanderpool, who seemingly had the respect of the players and stuff, and was someone who could maybe push back against some of this stuff, but he's been gone the last 2 years, so I don't know how to fix this other than to bring in a new coach who has a different system. And even if it was the same system, at least it would be different the way he's teaching it or something. I don't know, but like it's just way too soft and conservative, and it lacks too much aggression to ever work in today's NBA, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, offenses are getting better at exploiting drop scheme too. That's also part of it. Drop scheme is worse to run now than it's ever been, simply because people are improving from the 3-point line. Players are stretching out their ranges. Players are getting better at shooting off the dribble. It's just not the scheme you want to run. I feel like Vanderpool, like part of the drop off is maybe like I feel like he was a motivator. So the Blazers have talked about, we got to give consistent effort. I feel like Vanderpool did a good job of getting consistent effort out of players. I feel like that could be part of it. And then, a bunch of the things that you named. So I think that's a pretty good reason why it, because we ran drop scheme primarily a couple years ago, but our defensive ranking was 16th. So I feel like that's kind of what changed. There's a lot of variables around it that have changed. I feel like if you run primarily drop scheme, I feel like this year you would have no chance of being the 16th ranked defense if you ran drop scheme as much as we do. It would be very, very hard to be an above average defense run drop this year.
And the Bucks ran drop scheme the last couple of years, had one of the best defenses in the league, primarily because personnel was good. And what happens in the playoff? It gets completely exploited. They bow out early, and they completely changed their defense this year. And it'll be interesting to see how that affects them, their playoff run. But they are not using nearly as much drop scheme as they have in the past, and I think they're going to be better off by implementing some new things this year.
Yeah. I mean, sure, you can have the most elite defensive personnel and probably be an above average defense running 90-95% drop scheme, but yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard, especially this year. That's why offenses are setting records, in defenses in terms of like defensive rating, like we have the third worst defense in history. Like offenses are scoring at a higher rate in general this year, and a lot of it is due to just you have the rise of these dynamic guards. Chris Paul has always exploited drop scheme, but like Luka has his way against drop scheme. Trae Young will have his way against drop scheme. Chris Paul, Devin Booker both have their way against drop scheme. Jamal Murray is really good shooting off the dribble. You can't run drop scheme on him. And you have a lot more shooting. So where if you ran drop scheme, you could maybe have somebody stunt off the ball towards the ball handler when they were getting into the mid-range. You can't really leave guys as much space on the wings off the ball as you otherwise could have. So there's so many factors that go into why drop scheme is harder to run now than it's ever been. But yeah, that's how I'd explain it too.
So Steve Vineyard says when we talk about any LeBron team, all the defense, offensive, etc., is all on LeBron and his leadership. But with the Blazers, it's all about Stotts. Maybe Dame owns a lot of this. So right now we have a situation where since LeBron and AD have been out, the Lakers' defensive rating is actually better. It's better than when they had LeBron and AD. That is not it's not a personnel thing. It is all coaching and scheme based. And of course, if you have personnel to make it better, it's good. But the reason why it's still okay is because they're doing things schematically that is mixing it up. They're doing different things that they would normally do, and they're giving different looks to teams. So that is why they're having success with that kind of stuff. And yes, it helps to have guys on the court with that kind of leadership. But Dame, his entire career, 9 years in the NBA, he came from Weber State. He wasn't like super highly recruited out of high school. This guy has not had a strong, like, defensive oriented coach, so he doesn't know how to do those kind of things necessarily, like LeBron might have had. He had Mike Brown, who was considered one of the top defensive minds in the game, and he had him for a long time. Ironically, Mike Brown's also the guy who told Dame he was never going to succeed in the playoffs unless they started playing him off ball like Steph Curry did. But so maybe LeBron learned a lot when he was younger in the league and had a coach like that who instilled some of those defensive philosophies in him. But Dame doesn't even know like what to do on defense half the time, let alone be a leader on the court like that. It's just I obviously Dame needs to be a better defender. CJ needs to be a better defender. Like, obviously that's the case, and they need to improve and hold themselves accountable and hold teammates accountable on that end. I just don't feel like they've ever been taught how to do that. So I don't know how that manifests. You can say about effort and do that all you want, but it's not gonna matter if Cantor's sitting there 10 feet off the shooter and he gets a wide open three. It's just not going to matter. So I don't know how to do it. And then you see Nurk saying, oh, we need to be aggressive, right? We need to not do this. And then Stott says, no, he's going rogue. That's not what I want him to do or whatever. And it's like, so like, it's obviously a coaching problem in my mind. It's 100% a coaching problem based on Stott's comments after last game. I just don't, I mean, I'm not going to be convinced otherwise. I just think there's too many things you could be doing instead of running the same thing over and over again and expecting it to improve all of a sudden just based on, oh, we're going to will it to improve, you know?
Yeah. So let's talk about Rocco. That's the last player we have. He didn't really do much offensively, but that's completely fine. Didn't really force much. Is what it is. Your thoughts on Rocco?
Didn't really notice him much this game.
Yeah. How many minutes did he play? I'll find that out right now.
It was 30, 31.
Yeah, it doesn't. He played 32 minutes. It didn't seem like 32. It seemed like a lot less. But is what it is. I mean, he's still playing good basketball, still playing good defense. So that wraps up the players. People were talking about how Stotts is considering starting Cantor if Nurkic remains on a minutes restriction. I guess. I don't know. How long is he going to have to remain on a minutes restriction? Like, I feel like there's no reason this should be a thing that, like, lasts another 15 games. You know what I mean? I don't get it. I understand doing it if he's on a minutes restriction because then you can split up Cantor and Melo. That's the only reason to do it. But like, I don't know. It's funny because then you start the guy who can't protect the rim with with Dame and CJ, the backcourt that can't coexist defensively. And then, I don't know. It's just the whole center thing right now, the whole front court thing right now gives me a bit of a headache.
Well, it does make it easier, I guess, to split up Cantor and Melo. I mean, that's maybe their only thinking there.
I just, why, like, how long is this minutes restriction going to last? That's what I want to know. And if it's like 10 games, like, why? Is his calf really that bad? Or is he really that injury prone that you can't play him? Like, you got to get him in shape before the playoffs.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to do that on a minutes restriction, so I'm just at a loss for words, kind of baffled right now.
I think they said there was some sort of strategic...
Yeah, the knee inflammation, that's correct.
Yeah. Strategic way of doing it to get him in shape over a design period of time versus like just throwing him back in. I
Mhm.
don't know. Maybe it's like tonight if he plays and is not on a minute restriction and knowing we have a game tomorrow and Stotts is playing him 34 minutes or 37 in the case of Cantor, maybe that's the reason they're just trying to limit
I
how
mean,
much
but
Stotts can play him.
set the minutes restriction to 30 then. You know what I mean? And then I also get not playing on the first night of a back-to-back where the first night you're playing such a garbage team that you're going to win anyways. So, like, I agree with, like, send him out for this game, right? And then you get him back tomorrow. You need him tomorrow. To go up against Bam, though, like, I wouldn't bring Nurkic off the Bam tomorrow. You need somebody that can defend Bam because we're playing the Heat tomorrow. Bam will have his way with Cantor on the offensive end. You need Nurkic in there to guard Bam. Now, if you're playing a team that doesn't really have a center you have to worry about, maybe that changes the equation. I don't know. It's almost like I'd rather start neither and go small if we're not going to start Nurkic because he's on a minutes restriction, and then I don't know. But then you're cutting Cantor's minutes, and I mean Cantor's played well and is good. It's just like that's the one thing that O'Shea. That's the one mistake O'Shea's made in the past year, I feel like, is just overlooking the front court combinations. Like, if you're promising Melo minutes and then you're bringing in Cantor and those guys' defensive pairing doesn't really make sense. Should have probably only brought in one of those. I don't know, because now it's like a situation where it's just like, how do you make it work in terms of having the right defensive and lack of defensive pairings together to produce the best defense possible?
Yeah, and I mean, once again, straight from Stott's mouth, uh, Cantor's our backup center. I have to play him. So uh,
Yeah.
he basically admitted that he knows that it's a problem defensively, but yet, I don't know, he's going to start him, and then, I don't know. If I didn't know any better, I know this isn't happening, but it almost feels like Stotts coaches in a way to build in excuses when it doesn't work. So, like, oh, I had to start Cantor because Nurk's on a minute restriction. And like, what am I supposed to do defensively with Cantor? Derek Jones didn't help anything. So I almost feel like at this point, if he changed his schemes and it worked, then people would be like, what the heck? You have the same personnel. You're doing these things. Why did it take so long? And then he'd probably get fired anyway. So his only chance to survive this is once again to rely on people just Dame CJ Mello just getting hot all of a sudden and bailing them out, and Cantor getting a bunch of offensive rebounds if they're cold, and keeping us in games like he's done several times, and basically just win off of luck and good players. Like, I mean, I don't even know how else to explain some of these decisions. Even though I kind of suggested that before, like maybe that is a way to split them up, but yeah, I don't know if they're just being too cautious with Nurk or what. I mean, at some point, I feel like you just got to let him play, and if he gets hurt again, then it's just like, well, I mean, you're back to where you were anyway, so like just take the kid gloves off, and if he plays, he plays. If he doesn't, he doesn't, and I don't know. It's just there's so many things we can do with Nurk that we can't do with Cantor. At least like. Although Cantor had a couple of nice of those Nurk backdoor cuts where he found guys for lay-ins tonight. It happened at least twice. So once again, see something that's possible with him. That some people say he can't even make a simple pass out of that situation. But yeah, it's I don't know. If they're going to do it, I think they need to change the way they play defense. They can't just continue to drop him 10, 15 feet off the pick and rolls. They need to play him more like he played at the end of the Kings game and just let that either work or not work, because the other way isn't working in my opinion. And if you start him, it's just gonna magnify that further in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's go around the NBA if you're ready for that, if you want to.
Yep.
All right. Raptors beat the Cavs. That's Gary Trent Jr.'s 44.7 rebound, 4 assist performance. 17 for 19 for Trent. 7 for 9 from the 3-point line. 10 for 10 from 2, Eric, with 7 rebounds. Who knew it was possible for Gary Trent Jr.?
Tied his career high.
Yeah, phenomenal game from him. The Raptors beat the Cavs 135-115. Both those teams are out of the playoff picture at this point, more than 10 games below 500. The Lakers upset the Nets 126-101, 25-point blowout. Kyrie Irving and Dennis Schroeder both got ejected because they couldn't stop jawing with each other. The Nets had Kevin Durant. They did not have James Harden, but they had Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving played 21 minutes before he got ejected. So it's not like, they didn't have any of their big three. The Lakers get the 25-point win, though. They didn't have LeBron and Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is rumored to be coming back in 10 to 14 days. LeBron is apparently 3 weeks out, so they should be back to full strength somewhat shortly. But the Nets couldn't help us out at all. Honestly, if we're I don't know. It may end up being a situation where the Lakers winning might take them out of playing us in the first round, though, at the same time. So I'm not really standings watching like I am just because everything's bunched up and who knows how it plays out. But the Lakers' impressive win. Drummond had 20, Schroeder had 19. They signed Ben McLemore? I didn't even know that. Because I was going to go to the bench and I saw McLemore with 17 points. So that's a good pickup for them. He had a great game. I assume this was his debut for them.
He was cut like a week ago, and then once he cleared waivers, signed immediately. I'm not sure if he played a game before this or not.
Yeah, but impressive win for them. The Sixers beat the Thunder 117-93. Embiid has 27 points, and Tony Bradley, who the Sixers traded to the Thunder, had 16 against his former team. The Jazz beat the Kings 128-112. This game was actually in the Kings' favor at halftime. The Kings were up 6 at half. The Jazz pull away in the second half, much like they did against us. Donovan Mitchell has 42 points in this one. De'Aaron Fox, 30 points, 8 assists. The Jazz 40-13. I believe they're the first team to 40 wins. Yeah, I don't see how any other team would be at 40 wins. They haven't had any COVID issues there in Salt Lake City for the Jazz. So they continue their impressive run. They've won 24 games in a row in Salt Lake City. The Warriors beat the Rockets 125-109. Steph has 38 points, 8 rebounds. John Wall, 30 points, 7 assists. Warriors move to 25-28. The Suns blow out the Wizards. They outscore them by 20 points in the third quarter. Devin Booker pours in 27 in the winning effort. Russell Westbrook does have another triple-double in a loss. 17 points, 14 assists, 11 rebounds. The Suns move to 37-15. And then our game, 118-103 win. Blazers over Pistons. Let's look at the standings. The Blazers are currently 1.5 games above the 7th place Dallas Mavericks. They are 4 games above the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies. Of course, if the Mavericks play the Blazers or pass the Blazers, then the Blazers would be in a play-in position where they would face the 8th seed, assuming they wouldn't fall further than 7th. We'll have to wait and see on that. The Lakers are currently 1.5 games above the Blazers in 5th place. The Nuggets, we are tied with them constantly, Eric, but they are now 3 games ahead of us. They are in 4th. They've won 9 out of their last 10, 8 in a row. So we're losing ground on them. The Clippers are 4 games ahead of us for 3rd. The Suns are 6 games ahead of us for 2nd. The Jazz are 8.5 games ahead of us for 1st. I'm just looking at these standings. I mean, with our schedule, I feel like there's no chance. I feel like there's no chance at a top 4 seed all of a sudden. I don't know. I feel very down on our prospects for a top 4 seed.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the 7 plays 10 and 8 plays 9.
Wasn't it 7? Wait. Wasn't it 7 versus 8, and then the loser played 9 versus 10?
Okay, yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah, like 7 played 8, and the winner got in, and 9 played 10, and then the loser of 7 versus 8 played the winner of 9v10, and then that was for the 8th spot. That's what I thought.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, never mind. I was thinking something different.
Yeah. Which is, I like that system. So basically, if you're 7th or 8th, you just have to win 1 out of 2 games to get in. If you're 9th or 10th, you have to win 2 games to get in, basically, is how it shakes down for the play-ins, which I think makes a lot of sense. I also like that it creates, an incentive to stay in 6th place compared to 7th. That might be an arbitrary difference in some years. Now it's, we're in the last playoff position that doesn't have to deal with a buy-in, or not a buy-in, a play-in. I'm just looking at things at this point, though. It's Denver has the tiebreaker with us currently. The Clippers do as well. We play the Lakers a couple times. So maybe we can get the tiebreaker with them. I could maybe see us passing the Lakers, but
I think we're 1-1 against them this year, aren't we?
I thought we've only played them once.
Have we only played them once? Maybe I'm getting my ears mixed up.
I believe we've only played them once.
I got it.
We played the Clippers twice and got blown out both times. So we have the tiebreaker with the Lakers right now.
We only play the Lakers one more time.
Dang, we only play them twice this year?
No, we lost to them on February 26th.
Oh, I don't remember that game. Well, we're tied with the tiebreaker. Who knows who has it? I don't know. Our conference record isn't looking too good, though, Eric. So, yeah, we're going to have to win head-to-head series because we're 16-14 against the West. We are 15-7 against the East. But, yeah, I feel like the Mavericks have an easy... I feel like it's just as likely we fall to 7 as we get up to 5 at this point. We're a game and a half ahead of 7th. We're a game and a half behind 5th, but Dallas has an easy schedule. They're playing better. They've won 7 out of their last 10. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that's right. So Trevor, we won those 6 games in a row, remember? And then we played the Lakers and a couple other good teams and lost every time. And then we played a bad team and won.
Who did the Lakers have for that game? They still had LeBron, right? But no AD? Why am I blanking on this game, man?
It's February 26th.
Absolutely losing it.
Yeah, that was the game. Schroeder played pretty well. Harold played good off the bench. Yeah, LeBron had 28, 11, and 7 with 4 steals and 3 blocks.
Yeah, I don't know.
We only scored 93 points that game, too.
I remember scoring 93. Oh, we lost 103 to a 93? Yeah. I remember
102 to 93,
yeah. I remember that game now. That was fun. So, I mean, at this point, I don't even care about playoff positioning as much as I did earlier this season. If we can't beat a good team, it doesn't even matter. And at this point, we keep getting blown out by good teams. So, I'll continue to keep you guys updated on it near the end of every stream. But, I mean, what matters is, can we be competitive against a good team? Yes or no? Bonnie says I'm too young for memory loss. I don't remember everything. Come on.
This will be a good test tomorrow night. Another one of those somewhat litmus tests. Obviously not as good as Clippers and Jazz were, but
at this point we're past litmus tests because we've proven that we're not competitive against good teams. Now it's like, can we show improvement? Because before it was like, okay, we don't really know how we're going to look healthy with Nurkic against good teams yet. That's kind of how I felt like. That's why I was saying those were litmus tests. Now I feel like we know what we look like with Nurkic, with a healthy roster against good teams, and it's not good. So now it's, can we show some improvement and hopefully be competitive?
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But no Oladipo tomorrow for the Heat, but he hasn't, I don't know. He hasn't been too good this year. They still got Butler and Adebayo and Robinson and Hero and Dragic. They still got, a lot of their main components of their run in the playoffs last year. So, I mean, this will be a good team and a good game. Second night of back-to-back. Should have Nurkic for that game, albeit on a minutes restriction. So we'll see if we can get that job done.
Jackson asked, how would you feel if we dropped out of the playoffs completely?
I mean, Stotts would be gone. We'd happy about that. Would hope to get lottery luck, because what would give Dame the best chance at ever winning a championship would probably be us missing the playoffs this year, firing Stotts and getting a better coach, and then us getting into the top 4 of the draft. Us having some lottery luck. Because imagine a new coach. I don't know, say we somehow just go out and get like a Steve Kerr type of coach, and then we're able to, I don't know, get a Jalen Green or a Cade Cunningham. I mean, we'd be contention level. And yeah, so I don't know. If we miss the playoffs, Stotts is gone, so that's good. And then you just hope for lottery luck at that point. Honestly, wouldn't be, it would suck, but like it wouldn't, there would be silver linings to it, so to say.
Yeah, Block Boy, most likely not, but I think 14th has like a 2.6% chance of moving up or something, and a little bit higher for 13th. I mean, so yeah, it's unlikely, but I mean, there is a 2.5% chance or so of moving up to the top.
Yeah, we're 6.5 games above the Warriors right now with 20 left to go. But we face a lot of good teams. Like we could go like 6-14
the rest of the way, and that would put us at what, 37-35? I mean, if the Warriors can go on a bit of a run, maybe we got 13th best odds. I don't know. Like, obviously, it's extremely unlikely, but you just have fingers crossed, But here's the thing: if we got the 14th pick, this draft is loaded. Like, we'd be able to get either swing a deal with it potentially, or draft somebody of high value at that slot, and Stotts would be gone. So it still would be, 2 silver linings there.
Yeah. So for those saying we don't have a pick, it's lottery protected. So how that works is if we make the playoffs, it's top 14 protected. So that's basically playoffs or not playoffs. So if we make the playoffs, the pick goes to Houston, and then we're done with that, and we have all our future firsts back. They're no longer restricted trade-wise. If we miss the playoffs, that pick actually stays with us, and then the same protections fall over to 2022. So not if we lose in the play-in games or miss the playoffs completely, we would and get in the top 14, we would keep the pick. And then that same thing would apply next year, and then the year after that until it conveys to Houston one time.
Yep. Good explanation on that. I mean, but yeah, if we got like 14th, man, I mean, maybe like a Zaire Williams falls, or maybe, like a Franz Wagner is there. He could be interesting as a big playmaker that can shoot and defend. I mean, there would be, maybe a Corey Kispert there is, a 6'7" 3-point sniper. I mean, there'd be some interesting prospects there. We haven't talked about the draft hardly at all, but there would be some interesting prospects. This draft is loaded. So, yeah, I mean, it would create a lot of fun around the draft too, if that was the case. So there's silver linings. There's more silver linings if we fall out of the playoffs this year than there otherwise would be. And here's the thing: if we fall to 8th,
I'll take a first-round matchup against the Jazz. You know what I mean? They just blew us out, but, I mean, it wouldn't be as... I feel like we'd have a better chance against the Jazz than we did last year against the Lakers. So, I mean, I don't know.
I'm kind of, at this point, I'm kind of just, cool with whatever. We'll see, and I'm not really stressing about it, It's kind of how I am at this point.
Yeah, and then if we exceed those expectations, it'll be fun.
Yeah, and then we keep Stotts. Oh, man. I mean, yeah, I want to make the second round, but then it's if we make the second round, are we really going to keep him? You know what I mean? And then it's just, I don't know. Obviously, I want team success over anything. It's just I don't know. We gotta upgrade the coach, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's why I'm kind of just not stressing about it. It's weird to not stress about it. I'll come on here and rant when we, lose a playoff game. I'll come out on here and be hyped when we win a playoff game. But I don't know, a little different feel this time around.
And to Alvy's question, would you trade up if we get in the lottery? This year, none of the teams in the top 5 are going to trade down for what we would be offering. to they're not going to pass up a chance. Most of the teams that would be in that area would love to add one of those guys. There are 5 really big time players, maybe even more than that. This draft is loaded, and
5 players that would have been the number 1 pick last year. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and I think there's some in that next tier 2 that are going to be really good as well.
Jalen Johnson, Scotty Barnes, Keon Johnson. Yeah.
So yeah, there's no way we're gonna no team's gonna want CJ if the Cavs move up or it's just a situation where it would be way too costly to move up, especially considering we wouldn't be able to trade a future pick in that situation either.
You know what's funny is there's a lot of in the lottery. There's 3 guys I'm looking at right now that could play the 4 and also pass the ball and also defend, or have defensive potential. Scotty Barnes, Jalen Johnson, Franz Wagner. Wagner's the worst prospect out of the 3, but
right.
And I like Zaire Williams might have that potential a little bit as well. So he's very skinny, but he's 6'8", and skilled. So I mean,
I don't know. Maybe a guy falls. Maybe one of those 4 fall, and then you move forward. I don't know. It would create an interesting offseason, that's for sure. So anyway, anything else you want to end off this stream with?
No, just hope to see them play well tomorrow night.
We will be right back at it tomorrow with the post-game stream after that Heat game. I will get this uploaded to Spotify and Google Podcasts tonight, overnight. And so if you want to listen back, maybe you missed the first half of this and you want to listen to it, you can check out one of those platforms and listen to us that way. Other than that, I hope you guys have a good rest of your night, and then a good Sunday until we catch you after that game tomorrow. Follow us on Twitter at ToryJonesYT for me, at HoopsJock for Eric, at Blazers Uprise YT for the channel if you have not already. And with that being said, that is a wrap for this stream. We will catch you guys tomorrow night. We'll see what the Blazers can do against the Miami Heat. And until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.